It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. And that's what you have here. That's what you've earned here tonight.
Forget about the crowd. It's the size of the school. Their fancy uniforms. And remember what got you here. If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential, to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game, in my book, we're going to be winners.
On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch because we know when we add up all those inches, that's gonna make the difference between winning and losing.
It's down to the wire with Errol Marks and Speedy Petey.
Oh, Petey!
On the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Down to the Wire. We are live every single Monday and Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. New York Eastern Time. Remember, you can call us at 631. What's the number, Speedy, over here?
New number is 631-260-1601.
As you guys know, you can follow us by going to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. And guys, if you haven't downloaded our wonderful app, all you have to do is go to the iOS, WWSRN, and on the Android, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Speedy, how was your weekend?
It was good for the most part. My cousins came over yesterday. We had a little barbecue. Made one of your favorite foods. My uncle made lamb, which I know is one of your favorite foods.
I love lamb.
Yes, it was delicious. It was absolutely delicious. And then after they left, my aunt came over at night. So we essentially had two little barbecues, and we celebrated her birthday. Her birthday was on Saturday.
Well, I had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I actually celebrated a friend's girlfriend's birthday. It was very, very interesting. We were on the beach. It was nice. It was very unique and very fun. You know what it is when I'm around people I don't know, it gives me a little bit more insight of really getting to know somebody or a bunch of different people from all different parts of the country. So it was fun. And then, obviously, yesterday we had a barbecue, and I just relaxed and had my boring Sundays like you usually do. But anyways, we're not here talking about my life. We're here talking some sports, and I know a lot of people are complaining that there is nothing going on in the sports world, but sports is right around the corner. I don't know what's going on with baseball, and I know a lot of people are complaining about some of the players in the MLB that are arguing the points that they want their money and they want to be paid very well for a 72 or 76 game season. And right now, the owners aren't budging. So we will get into that a little bit later. We have a great show lined up for you guys. We will be talking to James Madison softball assistant coach Jen Herzig at 6:30. And at 7:15, we'll be talking to Hamilton Tigers Cats wide receiver Jaelon Acklin. So that'll be interesting as well. Did I pronounce his name right?
Yes.
Okay, because you, my friend, have terrible handwriting. But I want to get into this particular story because I know a lot of people don't talk about it enough, and I argue points that is going on in sports, and a lot of people compare and contrast certain players from certain sports. And you talk about some of the great players in the major leagues, one of them being Mike Trout. He's been the best player in the league for probably the last 7 years. In the NBA, you have LeBron James, who's probably been the best player in the NBA for the last 13, 14 years. And then you have in football, you can argue your points depending on the position, quarterback, defense, wide receiver. I guess you could say the best player in football for the last 16 to 15 years has been Tom Brady. But to me, when I look at sports, and my argument isn't about the best player or the biggest superstar, it's about a team. And as you know, football is probably the biggest team sport in all of professional sports.
You think over hockey?
Yes.
Okay. Because I feel like in hockey there's the least formalities of it, but football you definitely...
There are more positions in football.
Okay, that's fair.
And
that's fair.
When you talk about special teams, offense, and defense, you can go back and forth, which is more important, which is not. Mute that, Speedy, until we get callers. But I will tell you this. When I look at professional sports and I look at football, and I have to talk about this because it's been bothering me for the last couple of days. when you talk about this whole Colin Kaepernick and kneeling and the players disrespecting the flag and what we stand for here in the United States. It bothers me when I try to compare and contrast players, because that is not even the most important part of what is going on in sports right now. Because sports is not going on right now. You don't have football, you don't have baseball, you don't have hockey, so you're trying to find something to talk about. And I think the problem is right now in sports media and writing and journalism is people aren't looking at the big picture right now. It's not about the players. It's not about any of that. It's about the fans and it's about the league.
But the players, again, they have their own risks in themselves.
That has nothing to do with what I'm saying, Speedy. You can come in after I'm done with this. What bothers me more than anything when I watch these stupid analysts go on ESPN and Bleacher Report, and they're talking about, well, is football coming back? Is baseball coming back? Is hockey coming back? We all know hockey and basketball is coming back. We all know it's coming back. If it's coming back mid-July, end of July. But nobody's talking about the big picture right now. There are going to be no fans out there in the audience. You look at the big picture, and I know when I argue my points when it comes to sports, and I know a lot of people are probably saying, what is he trying to get to? Where is he trying to go with this story? Here's what I'm going to. Everybody is so worried about what players are making, what owner is going to make that trade that's going to make the team better. How about let's talk about the big picture right now, where sports is going? And right now, I don't care what anybody, sports is a wave of life. And I don't care what anybody says. It is a wave of life because right now, sports isn't going on. So everybody's trying to find a story or something to talk about, or you're watching old movies, old TV shows, and nobody gives a crap. Nobody gives a crap what's on TV anymore because you're watching all these stupid reruns. So now you're talking about everything that's going on in the world with, as you guys know, with the racism, the COVID-19, the politics, religion, all the garbage that you're hearing right now. And I'm not saying everything that I'm saying. COVID-19 is not a garbage thing, but I say it's garbage because it's when we're talking sports, or when people are trying to get into the sports world and talk and trying to find stories to talk about, the first thing that comes up, blame it on COVID-19. Blame it on kneeling. Blame it on racism. Now, when I look at sports right now in the big picture and where it's heading, I don't know where it's heading because I'll tell you this right now. I have talked about this over and over again, show after show after show, trying to figure out something that you could talk about where you can make an argument about, and I see what Carl's writing, don't have any revenue coming in yet. So, Carl, I understand what you're saying. I'm not even getting into the revenue situation. I don't even want to talk about that. I want to talk about why is it that analysts are trying to they're always trying to change the perception of what's going on right now in the world. And when you bring up sports and you want to get into the conversation of what's going on in the sports world, what's going on in basketball, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to use this playoff situation. What do we have, a caller? Do we have a caller? Again, Speedy doesn't know what the heck he's doing. So, anyways, but Speedy, if you can't use it, give me the phone and I will take care of it.
No, there's no caller.
Well, obviously, because you don't know how to use it. But what bothers me more than ever, and anything right now, what's going on in sports, is not the fact that there's no sports going on. It's the stories that are coming out in the sports world that I completely dislike. Because the first thing that comes out when this whole George Floyd thing came out, all of a sudden the players are getting involved with it. And it becomes a racism thing, back and forth, black and white, and it's completely bogus. It's so stupid. There should be no fighting. Right now, we live in a world where there's more stuff going on outside where we don't even talk about it. There are innocent people dying every single day, getting shot dead. There are people getting their heads cut off in different third world countries. And you try to bring sports in it so you can start talking about something that'll make you excited and probably bring you back to reality. Right. And there's nothing going on in sports. And then the fans, and I read stories, and a lot of these stories, I read blogs and a lot of these blog writers, and I'll give a lot of these fans a lot of credit because there really isn't anything to write about. So you're trying to figure out something that will draw people to read it and listen to it. But when you're coming out, when you're talking about, I mean, the last story that I just read the other day is Deion Sanders was training with Tom Brady. That Deion Sanders' son, Deion Jr., is training with Tom Brady. Is that a big story? It isn't. So everybody's trying to, and I told Speedy, what do you want to talk about today? And he says, I want to talk about this, because he's trying to find stories on the computer that everybody's talking about. I don't want to talk about stories like that.
Yeah, everything at this point is repetitive.
But why would you go over there and look at repetitive stuff? I asked you to look for something that intrigues you, interests you, that's going on in sports. And finally, you thought with your small little pea brain on looking up stories that would draw people to listen. But of course, you're just like everybody else. What you're trying to do is you're trying to draw the fans on something that nobody gives a crap about. When I think of sports right now, I think of delusion. I think of people that are blind, don't understand what they're watching, or don't even give a crap what they think that they know that they're watching. Now, I go and I look at right now the NBA and as a whole right now, as a league. LeBron James runs the NBA. He runs the NBA. Everything LeBron James puts out there, it's got to be all about LeBron. Mm-hmm. LeBron has this to say. LeBron has that to say. Did you see Michael Jordan do that in the 80s and the 90s? No. In football, when you talk about the NFL, who are the big stories that come out in football right now? What is the big name that comes out? Tom Brady, of course. They had to find a story. Well, Deion Sanders Jr. is training with Tom Brady. Who the hell cares? Where's Colin Kaepernick going? I mean, Seattle owns the rights to Colin Kaepernick. Where is he going? Who the hell cares where Colin Kaepernick is going?
Wherever it is, it'll be a backup regardless.
The NHL. We're trying to figure out, they're trying, obviously next week I think the camps are going to open up. So the NHL is right around the corner, so we could be talking about something in sports, maybe Lord Stanley's Cup. But this is what bothers me right now, because I sit here and I have my producer sitting right beside me, and I asked him, what stories do you want to talk about today? And of course, he brings up this same old garbage you listen to on sports radio, not only here, but throughout the country. What you're trying to do is you're trying to draw fans to listen to the conversation, to draw them to want to conversate with you, call your show, and maybe bring up an argument that maybe other people aren't talking about right now in sports media. So when I sit here and I argue my points with what's going on in sports, I come up with topics that will draw the fan to argue with us. So now, going back to LeBron James. LeBron James has been he's been the center of attention right now in the media for the last couple of weeks. Not only with the George Floyd situation, but right now where the NBA is going, and that he wants the NBA to come back and he wants the playoffs to come back. Because, of course, LeBron James believes he has a chance to win a championship this year with Anthony Davis and those
Lakers.
No, could you let me finish what I have to say? I've just had it. I've had it, and I've had a long day today, and I know a lot of people are probably saying, wow, he's in a bad mood. I am in a bad mood because every day that I listen to sports radio and sports media, everybody's trying to find something to put into a story that has no meaning to what's going on in the world and the world in sports. Because they're trying to find something that will draw fans. And talking about this same old garbage that ESPN and CBS and NBC is talking about on their sports radio show is a bunch of bogus. And don't you say anything, because you're the one bringing up these topics that you tell me, we're going to talk about this and we're going to talk about that. We're talking about the same stuff everybody is talking about. And that's why I call this the delusion era. And you know why? Because everybody is deluded when it comes to sports when there's nothing going on in sports.
Yeah, especially with the politics. I think those networks in particular, really, they're either one extreme or the other.
So I sit here today, and we have a great show lined up, and I've got some stories to talk about, and I wanted to come into that because I'm an angry person today. I am really, really angry today. I've had a really, really rough day, and I'm here to talk sports for you guys. But I am not going to talk about the same old garbage that's on sports radio every single day. The same deluded, delusional fans out there that have their own thoughts of what's going on in sports when, to me, has no meaning to what it is today or what it's going to be tomorrow. Like I said, we have a great show lined up for you, and we will be talking to James Madison softball assistant coach Jen Herzig in just a few minutes. But before we do that, I do want to say this. And by the way, Carl is saying, laying it out there, no delusion. Cubs make playoffs 5th time in 6 years of they play. I don't know what that means.
If they play.
If they play. If they play. And Carl, this has nothing to do with the Cubs. This has nothing to do with the sports team. This has everything to do with the fans out there. It has everybody blinded to see. If nobody believes that sports is the wave or the way of the world, it's so funny. And I will say this before we go to break. There are tons and tons of people out there that don't like sports. Tons. Tons of people that can't stand sports. And I'll tell you this right now. Tell me this. Go ahead, put him through. Go ahead, put him through. You having a problem there, Speedy? Oh, my God. What are you doing?
It's your phone.
Well, what I could say and what I will only say is when I watch what's going on in sports today and what bothers me more than anything. And by the way, guys, stop calling my phone when we're during a real live radio show. I'm so sick and tired of people calling me. You want to call the show? Call the show. We got it. 631-260-1601. If you want to talk about sports, don't call my phone if it has nothing to do with sports. Well, let's go to break. We'll come back. When we come back, we'll have Jen Herzig here on Down to the Wire.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You're listening to Down to the Wire on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Six 260-1601 is the number. As you know, this is Down to the Wire. We are live every single Monday and Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. New York Eastern Time. As you guys know, you can call us at, again, 631-260-1601. Well, I told you we had a great show lined up for you, and we have our first guest of the show. We are now talking to James Madison softball assistant coach, Jen Herzig. What's going on, Jen? How are you? We are good, Jen. And do you hear us? Jen? I'm sorry. Oh, there we are. You hear us now?
I can hear you, but it's kind of breaking in and out.
All right. Well, we're trying to fix it. We're going to fix it. Hold on 1 second. Do you hear us now? Do you hear us better?
I cannot hear you. If you're talking, I absolutely cannot hear anything else.
All right. I'm trying to get this thing working here. Do you hear us now?
I got you now. Yep, I got you now.
All right. Wonderful. How are you and your family doing with this pandemic?
Everybody's good. My parents are in Northern Virginia. My dad owns a very small excavation company. My mom does the accounting and bookkeeping stuff for him. So for the most, she can work from home. My brother is down in Greensboro. He's working from home, and then uncle I'm real close to, and a grandmother in Florida. Aside from my grandmother's assisted, not letting anybody in or letting her out. I think she's going a little bananas by this point in time, but everybody is at least safe and healthy and doing okay.
That is wonderful. So tell us a little bit about James Madison softball. What is it like coaching under Lauren?
Well, Lauren and I have worked together. We worked together for 5 years before she became the head coach. So I would like to believe that we worked together. It's not necessarily a working under somebody. I was a head coach for 7 years prior to coming up here, and that was always the biggest thing to me with my staff was that this better be our program. It can't be my program, or else we're not all invested in the same way. So I would like to think that that's the same on our staff now, that, everybody is equally invested, and, we all are responsible for our own areas, and, everybody is working as hard as they can to make the players in the program the best of, to the best of their ability, and that everybody is equally invested, but has that amount of responsibility and autonomy to do their job the right way.
In terms of your specialty, you work with catchers and outfielders on this James Madison team. Talk about that.
What has never made it to my bio, and I'm not exactly sure why. I'm actually the hitting coach here. I've actually been the hitting coach at JMU. So I especially is working with our hitters. From a defensive standpoint, yes, I work with the catchers in the outfield. Catching is my love. It was what I did as a player. I was a catcher infielder. Outfield was what I was signed 8 years ago when we all started here. I would not say I'm an outfield specialist by any stretch of the imagination, but at the end of the day, hitting is my love. Working with hitters is my love, and then working with catchers. I think the cool thing about being in charge of both the catchers and the outfield, I feel like on most college programs, I don't even know that. I think most programs in general, I think your catchers and your typically the least undercoached positions, but oftentimes have the biggest impact in terms of ball game. Everybody knows that you either have it in the circle or you don't, and nobody's team is ever going to be any better than their pitching staff is going to be. And I think the next amount of focus always goes to the infield. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a pitcher back there who can your pitching staff, and you don't have an outfield that can, play quality defense, that's championships are lost. And so I in those positions that I feel like are very oftentimes undercoached in different areas. So I enjoy working with those kids. But hitting is definitely my love.
We are talking to James Madison softball assistant coach, Jen Herzig. So, Jen, I ask all these coaches, they're scouting a player, they go in and talk to their families. How do you sell James Madison to the family and the player?
We sell our program and we sell our players. And I think what we have done here over the course of our 8 years speaks volumes, and it should speak for itself. And I feel very honestly, I don't mean this to come off, as cocky or anything like that. But at the end of the day, if that doesn't speak volumes to the person it's not the right person for us. I think anytime you have to oversell, somebody's not buying what you're selling to begin with, so you may as well cut your losses and move forward. I think our players are what makes this program special, not just their accomplishments and their accolades. The fact that they have to outwork people, but the schedule we play, our players are forced to outwork everybody else because we don't always have, the exact same talent as everybody else or the exact same resources as everybody else. And our players take a whole lot of pride in that. I take a whole lot of pride in that as their coach. And I think that's important. It's important to celebrate the accomplishments that our kids had, and to talk about that because we've done some really, really special things here over the course of our 8 years, and stuff that, some of the big boys haven't done year in and year out, but we have. And I think at the end of the day, if we have to sell, we're not having conversations with the right people. And so I'm very comfortable moving forward, continuing to chase a kid or chase a family if they're not really getting what we're selling, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. Talk about your experience with James Madison. Since you've been there, your team, except for the first year, has made the NCAA regionals every year. You were a 50-win team a couple years ago. Talk about just the growth of the program and, again, your influence on the program and the things you stress as an assistant coach and a hitting coach.
I think the kids in that very first year, we were, and please understand, this is just a statement, not a criticism. It is not a statement of opinion. It is not a statement of good or bad whatsoever. We were the exact opposite of the staff that all of those kids had chosen to play for. We were different in mentality. We were different in demeanor, different in, the expectations that we had for them. We were different in the amount of work that we asked them to put on the table on a daily basis. We were different than what they had said yes to. And so the reason I say that is because those players them to buy into us, but they did anyway. I think it's a whole lot easier to buy into things that, are your comfort zone and, like the people that you said yes to at one point in time. And it didn't happen, right away, but I would say by about the middle of October, we had a senior class of 4 players. Only one was truly an everyday player. One, maybe 2 were everyday players. But those 4 jumped on board. And, it was like the light bulb got flipped on. And as soon as those 4 bought in, the rest of the team bought in. And I'm not saying that it was all sunshine and rainbows after that. There was a lot of hard work. There were a lot of trying times. But once that senior class bought in, the rest of the kids, it was kind of like they said, okay, if they're bought in, I'm going to buy in also. And that first senior class, those are the ones that changed the course of the mentality of this program. We were incredibly blessed to walk into a program with one of the 2 best pitchers I've ever been around in my life, and without question, the best catcher I've ever been around in my life. They were both freshmen for us that year. And having that caliber pitcher and catcher on that team as freshmen completely changed the course of what this program was able to do from a win-loss standpoint. The kids bought in. They bought into working the tails. They bought into the fact that it was going to be hard. They bought into the fact that, we were going to ask them to do things that they had never done before. And they said yes to it, and I think moving forward, it's been the job of every single class that is coming class to keep the program moving forward. And I think, that's one of the things that I want so badly to be part of my legacy, whether it's a JMU or any team I'm ever a part of coaching. At the end of the day, I want the players who play under me to leave a program better than they found it. Mm-hmm. And I want them to leave as stronger, more confident, more independent women than the day they walked through the front doors, for the very first time. And I think when you focus on those 2 things, I think it becomes a whole lot bigger than what goes on the field. You begin coaching people, not just coaching athletes. And that's something that, if there's talk about me once they're done playing for me, those are the things that I would love to hear them say about me.
We are talking to James Madison softball assistant coach, Jen Herzig. Now, one of our fans are actually typing and posting up some blog questions for you. Carl, one of our big fans, says, how do you tell the girls to approach a 2-strike hitting?
Okay, so we share our facility with our baseball program as well, and I work a lot of late nights, especially during season. I do 100% of the scouting for us, which means I'm in the office all hours doing scouting stuff, and I don't have a printer in my office, so I walk back and forth to the copy room where the printer is, and printing scouting reports, printing spray charts, whatever it may be. And our baseball guys, they do study hall in our building, and they're there, most nights, until 10 or sometimes even 11 o'clock at night. And one night I kept walking back and forth with the printer, and you could tell the guys were having a hitting conversation, stuff like that. And, I stayed out of it. I minded my business. And finally I walked through at one point in time, and one of the guys says, hey, Coach, can I borrow you for a second? Sure, what's up? And he said, we're talking about 2-strike approach. What's yours? And I just laughed, and I said, well, you're going to tell me this isn't one, but we don't have one. And he cracked up and literally, slapped the other guy on the shoulder, and he was like, see, I told you that's why they hit so many home runs, because they don't have a 2-strike approach. And I cracked up that he got it. I appreciate the fact that you understand that that's coaching, lack of coaching. I believe in swinging big and, trying to hit a ball as hard as you can possibly hit it. I think hitting is as incredible can be to begin with. Mm-hmm. I think asking a player to shorten up and to change a swing based on the count is nearly impossible when our players are expected to hit against the level of pitching that we see early in the season and the same level of pitching that we see again in postseason. So I'm going to tell you, I don't have a 2-strike approach. My approach is that I want you to swing and figure out, how much damage will swing. What we do talk to our players about all the time is, me saying to them, I don't care what pitch you can hit. I care what pitch you can hit hard, mm-hmm. And so that's really where they start to identify their strike zone and, what the strike zone is, versus, the area is kind of battling, we're not looking to actually necessarily play. I believe very strongly in foul. I think foul balls are fantastic. There have been games that our dugout gets as hype, if not more hype, over a good foul ball than they do about a hit, because of the magnitude of what a foul ball does for them in point in time. So I like a lack of coaching, but swing hard in case we run into one is kind of what we kind of.
You talk about that. What can you hit hard pitch? Is that something that you stress in terms of maybe getting your hitters to hit in different spots in the strike zone, hit different types of pitches. Is that an extra sense of training that you?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important. It's every single hitter we have. We have had one player in particular. She years ago was on the shorter side, and this kid loved to swing at pitches literally chest high or up even above her shoulder, around her shoulders and stuff like that. And, and God knows the kid had a fantastic work ethic and hit extra with me a ton. And it was like I would leave one up in the zone in front toss and she'd, crush the thing, and I'm like, okay, but just because we can hit it doesn't mean you necessarily should hit it, and I'm like, if you can hit it, me throwing 40 miles an hour, 35, 40 miles an hour, that doesn't mean you can hit it at 68 or 70 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she could, and she was the kid who loved to prove me wrong, with that. And, not in a spiteful way by any stretch of the imagination, but she had the power on that pitch that was well out of the strike zone. Kate Gordon, who will be a fifth for us this coming year, has power on pitches that are significantly out of the strike zone on the up end. And that's not a pitch that some people, some other people on our roster can necessarily play. So it's knowing what pitch they can image on, what pitch do they actually hit the hardest, and never letting that pitch go. And if we foul it off, fantastic, but we're called strike.
Jen, me and my producer over here, we've been arguing about positioning on the field, especially in baseball. And softball is obviously a little bit different from baseball. And we've argued the point that he believes that center field is the most important defensive position on the field. And my argument was shortstop and catcher. If you were to choose a position right now in softball or even baseball, what would you pick to be the most important position defensively on the field?
Are we taking the pitcher out of the conversation?
The pitcher out of the conversation. Just the play, usually the normal catcher,
okay.
First base, third base.
Then I'm gonna side with you, and I'm gonna go our catcher, our shortstop, and then I would go our center fielder. I would work straight up the middle. Actually, for us, our second baseman has a tremendous amount of responsibility as well. So I would work straight up the middle of the field. But at the end of the day, knowing what we expect out of our pitching staff, if we don't have a catcher who is phenomenal back there, we don't have legs to stand on. So at the end of the day, I don't care how good my middle infielders are. I don't care how good my center fielder is. If we don't have a catcher behind the plate that can handle the pitching staff, I feel like, our legs get cut out.
So you're
even quicker.
So you're picking the catcher.
I would definitely say catcher, but I would work straight up the middle of the field, all those positions. So I would agree with both of you guys. Yes.
Talk about the catching, because again, that's one of the specialties you have. In terms of softball, do you think the craft of catching in softball, because the pitching motion is underhand, you have the double, triple rotation, you think the craft and just the whole concept of catching is different in softball than baseball? And if so, how?
I teach differently than baseball. Catching coaches teach a lot of it, and I would say this has been one of the biggest privileges of my entire coaching career in terms of something I did off the field, in a game setting, with my own team. But I got to work a camp a couple of summers ago for a friend of mine who's the head coach at Virginia Wesleyan over in Virginia Beach, and he has a very, very good friend who is actually a major league catcher for a long, long time, and was living back in Virginia Beach at the time and has two daughters that used to attend the camps and everything, and both of his daughters were pitchers. Well, anyway, this guy instructed a camp with me one summer, and it was one of the highlights of my entire career. What was so cool was, at the end of the day, we had older kids, we had little kids, and at the end of the day, I really compared notes. I said to him, I want you to be with me. What do I teach that you do not teach? What do I teach differently? And he said, you teach everything exactly the same way I teach it, except for glove positioning when you're receiving. Baseball catchers catch with a bent elbow with the glove much deeper against their chest. I want my catchers to go out with a completely straight, almost locked out arm and extend everything back towards the pitcher. So the glove is always pointed in a straight line in front of her chest as much as possible, with the glove actually facing back to the pitcher, regardless of where the ball has been received. Section of that, we taught blocking the same way. We taught throwing mechanics the same way. We taught footwork the exact same way. Everything else he and I taught were exactly the same, with exception of the receiving position, in terms of the glove and the arm strength. And he said to me, now my daughters are pitchers. He said, but I'm telling you right now, if my daughters were catchers, I would teach them what you teach, not because I've listened to you, but because it's what makes sense to me. He said, I am so much stronger in my upper body than you are, meaning me. He said, I wouldn't think my daughters would be able to handle somebody who truly threw hard with a bent elbow. He was like, I would want them going out and extending back to the pitcher exactly like what, I think a lot of ways it is very, very similar. I always try to look, and if something is a better way to do it, I'm not to set in my ways to say no to it, but it's got to make sense, and I've got to see proof in doing it. And I haven't caught on to the bent arm, behind the plate in terms of receiving yet. I can't get, that's the one thing I can't get on board with just yet.
We are talking to James Madison softball assistant coach, Jen Herzig. So, Jen, I watch baseball, and I'm a huge baseball fan, and I get the chance to watch softball. I watch the United States softball team play when they have those tournaments, the Olympics. I also watch the softball World Series. That's intriguing. You don't really get a chance to watch a lot of softball here in New York on TV because they don't really play a lot of girls softball, only when the playoffs come around and the World Series comes around. So let me ask you this question. The differences between softball and baseball and the differences of playing with a metal bat to a wooden bat in baseball. No, my question is knowing that softball they use metal bats and in college baseball they use metal bats and in the majors they use wooden bats. As a batting coach, what is the difference? What is the difference from hitting with a wooden bat or a metal bat?
Wood bat is the most real feel of anything you're ever gonna put in your hands. Totally unforgiving. When you've hit a sweet spot, when you've missed the sweet spot equally as well. Obviously, it's just so much more of a real feel, and a more, and it's not even funny. I think with metal, or composite, either one, I think you've got a little bit more of room for error in terms of where you're actually making contact with it and everything. So I think baseball, with a wood bat is as true as it. Actually do a whole lot of training with wood bat over the winter because number one, it's heavier than what our bats are or composite bats are. And so, it's a strength training element to it. They have to force their hands to stay high in the zone or else their hands and their barrel drop, just naturally. We also do it for the feel of it and for them truly learning, how to actually get their sweet spot to the right part of the softball as well. So we actually do some of that stuff in addition to what we use in games.
Talk about this softball substitution strategy, and it's a lot different than baseball. You have your designated offensive players, you have some designated defensive players. Do you like the strategy of softball more than baseball in terms of the way their managerial strategy is and substitutions?
I love it because it's all I know, and so I don't have something, that I've actually done myself to compare it to. So, it's what makes sense to me. For us, we have a one-time reentry. So any of our starters can be subbed out and can go back into the lineup in the same spot they came out of one time before they're, done for the day. Substitutes are done, as soon as they enter a game and come out, they would obviously be done. We have players that is tied to a flex player who would be in the 10th position on our lineup card. The flex player just plays defense for us but doesn't hit. But the flex player has the ability to go up into the batting order and enter the offensive order wherever the DP, those two players are tied together, if that makes sense. So she's allowed to go up into that DP spot. She can hit, she can run, she can do whatever. So there's a whole lot of flexibility and, kind of creative maneuvering that coaches can actually do, when they actually truly understand the DP flex rule, and can kind of maximize. It's basically used for a program based on some.
Did we lose you? I don't know if we lost her. You still there?
Nope, I can still hear you guys.
Oh, good, because we thought we lost you. As you guys know, we are talking to James Madison softball assistant coach Jen Herzig. Jen, we had Lauren on the show, and we got into a little baseball conversation, and I asked her what was her thoughts to the whole Houston Astros cheating scandal. In your thoughts, what did you think about the cheating scandal, and did you think that the MLB did enough, as far as I'm concerned, of suspensions and firing of coaches and GMs?
I don't know what, would have been enough, wouldn't have been enough. I think they absolutely made a statement. I would like to think that that is something that is, was heard loud and clear across the league. At the end of the day, I believe in playing the game the right way. I don't think any win is worth a win if you've got to, cheat and cut corners to get there. And I've said for my entire career, I would rather something take me longer to accomplish, to be able to look myself in the face and know I've done it the right way versus getting there quicker because I've cut corners to do it. I think there is scouting, and then I think there's cheating. And I think they're two completely, and when you do things the right way, I think you should be entitled to any amount of information you can gather on your own and figure out and stuff like that. And I absolutely think it crosses the line when it comes down to stealing. And so yes, I think they made it. I think that statement needed to be made. Code wasn't enough of a statement that it carries forward, for the rest of baseball, and that gets revisited down the road because it wasn't enough of a statement. And either people forgot too quick, didn't think that the penalty was severe enough that, they weren't deterred from trying the same thing, basically. So I would like to say I hope so.
In terms of if that were to happen to you, you think an opponent is stealing signs electronically, cheating in that manner, how would you approach your game plan and maybe what you tell your pitchers, your hitters, just assistant, any player on your team being the assistant coach? If you were to sense that, what would you tell those players? And also, what do you think Lauren would tell those players too as the manager?
I think across the board, I think our staff would communicate to the team. Number one, I think we would not communicate. If we didn't think the kids, I don't think we would communicate it. I don't think we would throw that information out there. I think that would do more harm in the long run. I think it would get in somebody's head versus just being information. Now, if our kids already knew that it was happening, I think that's a completely different story. So let's play the scenario out where the kids already know what's going on. To me, it's just one more factor that we need to work around. It's our job to be able to take for us, it means that they've got our signals. We better figure out something else to do with them. Each one of our pitchers has multiple call cards. We call from wristbands. That's how our pitch calling is done. That's how our offensive signals are called. We've got a whole lot of sets of each of those things, both offensive and defensive. Each one has something specific to yourself. So, I think number one, I think the first thing we would do is, go back to, just switching cards out, more frequently, or using somebody's different card, versus, our have our pitchers switch up cards or something to that effect. Then at the end of the day, we still have, a number signal. We would go to that. So I think, it's just one of those things that it becomes another hurdle to kind of overcome during a game. I don't know that it's any different than, let's say, you're the player who thinks that the, umpires are calling against you and, you're not getting a fair shake and stuff like that. It's just something to overcome during a game. So I think I would downplay it as much as possible, where the players still felt like they had enough control, where they were still in charge of the outcome of the game, that it wasn't, because our opponent knows this, this, and this, we've already shot ourselves in the foot and, the outcome has already been decided.
Jen, one of the fans asked me to ask you, who is more of the comedian of the coaches, you or Lauren?
I would actually say Libby, our pitching coach. Between the three, it is definitely not going to be me. I think I'm the serious one. I'm the one who I would say is the most intense. Lauren is very loving and very kind of motherly with the kids. Libby is younger than both of us, so she's much closer in age to them than we are. So I think Libby is kind of a little bit the jokester at times. So I would actually go with, my vote would be Libby, actually.
Last question for me. You had a case this past season where you were playing in the Los Angeles Super Regional against UCLA in 2019, and again, yep. they got to host the game in Los Angeles. And baseball and softball have it where that's the rule, and no other NCAA sports are like that. Are you in favor of that rule, or do you think it's something that benefits these power teams a lot more?
No, it actually does not benefit the power teams at all, actually. It benefits the highest seeded teams. It is 100% to me done the right way. It used to be, a bunch of years ago, it used to be that our regionals and then following that super regionals were actually just hosted truly pick sites all across the country. Several years ago, it changed to the top 16 seeds got to host the regional. We have been in that mix, more than once. Then the top 8 seeds, if all the seeds hold, the top 8 seeds host the super regional. And I 100% believe in that. I think it's the reason that, you work hard all year long and you try to get yourself seated as high as you possibly can. And what's great about it, as long as your facility meets standards, with the NCAA, it doesn't matter who you are or what conference you come out of. Had we been the higher seeded team, UCLA would have come to us. And that wasn't the case. And we, absolutely loved our experience going out to UCLA, but I completely believe in the system. I absolutely think the NCAA does it the right way. And it truly gets your kids to understand that every single game matters, because you have no idea at any point in time which game is going to bump you from being the 9 seed to the 8 seed, where you could be on the road for a super regional versus hosting a super regional. And that is a very, very, very big difference in our game.
We are talking to James Madison softball assistant coach, Jen Herzig. Jen, the major leagues and really all over professional sports, the leagues are trying to speed up the game or make the game more fun to watch. And baseball, which I completely dislike, are right now deciding if they should get rid of the umpires behind the plate and use electronic umpires. Do you think bringing in electronic umpires is going to help the game or make the game worse moving forward?
I'm very much a traditionalist. It's something I don't want to see at all. I think it is a game of people. There, yes, is a very small margin of human error, and I think that that's a good thing. I think these guys are paid a whole lot of money, and I think we're more appalled by anybody when they don't have a perfect game, and I know some very, very good umpires at the college softball level. They beat themselves up worse than what any coach could ever say to them. I can only imagine what guys in Major League Baseball, how seriously they take it. I don't want to see, it go electronically by any stretch of imagination. I do think that training, and I think they need to take their fitness and their workouts incredibly seriously, and I think they need to work as hard as the athletes do. And that's been the thing that I think, in our sports I respect the most. Stand is every year they get a year older, and every year the college athlete stays the same age. Mm-hmm. Every year the college athlete is still 19 to 21 years old, and every year they get one more year older and a little bit slower, and whatever it may be. I say it gets maybe a tiny bit worse, and they work at it. And that's in the college level on the I truly can't imagine the preparation and the work and the pride that Major League Baseball umpires put into their game. And I really would hate to. Honestly, I think it would change the game so much. It's not even, stay home and play Xbox. my suggestion there. I think it's a game of people, and it needs to stay a game of people.
Before we let you go, could you tell us a particular player going into next year that you're looking forward to coaching? I mean, obviously you're going to say you're looking forward to coach all your players, but is there a particular player that stands out your recruiting class that you can't wait to coach?
Of the incoming class, I would say our incoming catcher. I've known her for several years at this point. I'm super excited to actually work with her on a daily basis. That's going to be a whole lot of fun for me, just to continue to see her grow and everything. The returners, our freshman catcher this past year, she was very much thrown into the fire and, became a star. Even what she expected, in December and over Christmas break, due to some personnel changes on the team over that break period, and she took the bull by the horn and, jumped in and did an amazing thing. And knowing that, she had a shortened season under her belt, but she was able to catch a 2-time All-American and, really settle in and find a comfort zone with Odyssey. I want to see what Emily can do year when she has, a little bit more composure underneath her and a little bit more maturity underneath her, and, she's a little bit more seasoned. In terms of our upperclassmen, I am super, super excited about the 3 seniors that are coming back. 2 are All-Americans, Kate Gordon, outfielder, Odyssey Alexander, a pitcher. They're both All-Americans. Kate has pretty much done everything you can do from an offensive standpoint. Odyssey is one of the best 2-way players I've ever even seen in my life. The kid still has no idea how good she is. I hope she figures it out before she graduates, because she's an unbelievable athlete. And then, said, for the longest time, I've never even seen a second baseman as good as ours is. The defensive plays that Madison Iokas makes, they're just silly. It's one of those things you honestly sit in the dugout and kind of chuckle about how good she actually is.
Wow.
And I can't tell you the number of times it's said in the season, God, she's good. Like, she's just so good. It's one of those, thank God she's on our team kind of thing. So to be able to bring those three seniors back and do it one more time with them, I'm so incredibly thrilled that, our shortened season wasn't the way that those three players walked out of the program for the last time. I'm them to come back and be able to compete for one more championship. And to have a group of underclass six incoming freshmen, that are going to have their eyes very much wide open, because it's going to be a roster that's been bigger than, any roster any college athlete has ever played on, because it's 5 classes, not just 4. I'm really excited to see what they do with the bonus year in terms of leadership and maturity, and, how they close this chapter of their lives, and, what they truly do to move this program forward in one last year.
Jen, before we let you go, why don't you tell the fans how they can find you all over social media?
Social media, our Twitter is at JMU Softball. I believe our Instagram is the same. It's not very, very similar, but I believe it's the same. This is bad that I don't know this. It's logged in on my phone, so I don't ever search for it when I do some of our posts. I just open up the app. But I would believe they're both at JMU Softball for both accounts.
Awesome. Before we let you go, could you give us your email address, because we want to send you all the files and the audio file from this interview to all your fans throughout your social media?
Sure thing. It's my last name, Herzig, HERZIGJL @jmu.edu.
That's why I told my producer to pick up the pen, but he's standing there wondering what I'm telling him to do. But Jen, he's sitting here. It's so funny because before we let you go, it's been a crazy day here in Long Island. It's actually 73 degrees. It's beautiful outside, but for some reason today is like a hex day. Every people are driving like lunatics all over the roads over here, and I really don't believe that people actually know.
You don't know what to do when the temperature cools back off after it's been 90 or 92 degrees. Nobody knows what to do with themselves when it's back in the 70s, right?
Oh my God! I tell you, Jen, I think that it's the end of the world today. There are people, there are kids, skateboarding across the street, a busy street right now, and cars flying down the road. I'm surprised. I almost saw a kid get hit off his skateboard. So it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy today. I don't know what it is.
Wow.
Twilight Zone today. Anyways, Jen, thank you for joining us. And by the way, we talked to Lauren about a week and a half ago. She's awesome. And when we were talking about if there's any opportunity for us to come down to Virginia and interview the team and the players, she would love for us to come down there. And we'd love to meet you and do a live interview with you in the near future.
Absolutely. That'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. Jen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. Assistant coach from James Madison, Jen Herzig, gave us some good information, not only with her team, but some Major League Baseball thoughts as well. When we come back, we'll get more into some sports. I want to get into some NBA talk, and we'll have our second guest. Who do we have?
We have
at 7:15.
Hamilton Tiger Cats of the CFL, wide receiver Jaelon Acklin.
And that will be at 7:15. So stay tuned here on the great Down to the Wire.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You're listening to Down to the Wire on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
631-260-1601 is the number. As you know, this is Down to the Wire. We are live from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. New York Eastern Time every Monday and Tuesday. And as you guys know, you can download our actually, you can go to our website by going to our website at sportsonthego1.com, or you can go to worldwidesportsradio.com, and you can download our app. How do you do that? You go to Android, Worldwide Sports Radio Network, or you can go to the iOS, WWSRN. I'd like to thank Jen Herzig, the James Madison softball assistant coach, for joining us. And we have our second guest of the day. We are now talking to Hamilton Tigers Cats wide receiver Jaelon Acklin. What's going on, Jaelon?
Nothing much, just chilling at the house.
Just chilling at the house. You watching a baseball game? You were telling me off air.
Yeah.
What baseball game?
Yeah, I don't usually watch baseball, but there's not many sports on, so.
What baseball game are you guys watching?
We're watching Florida State versus Wichita State in the 2006 College World Series.
Wow. So how are you and your family doing with this pandemic right now?
We're doing good. I mean, as good as we can. I live in the Ozarks down in Missouri, so there's a lot of like floating. We've been going like kayaking and stuff, and I've been playing, basketball and football with my little brothers. Been working out every morning, so I mean, it's been nice. It's like I'm in high school again or something.
So, Jaelon, why don't you tell us a little bit about the CFL? I've watched the CFL for the last 10 years. Everybody knows where Kurt Warner came from. He came from the CFL. What is your thoughts to the CFL and the growth of the Canadian Football League?
I love the CFL. It's a different experience. Even though it borders the United States, not very many people from the States have really been up there. It's a beautiful country. Everyone's I love coffee and pancakes, so I fit in pretty well there. So, but yeah, the CFL as a league, it's a little hard to get used to. The running, you have to like run forward at the snap as a wide receiver. But once you get the hang of it, I mean, it's a lot like the NFL or any other college football. A little different having 12 people. There's different coverages, different things you gotta look for. Cause there's always like 2 or 3 safeties in. You gotta kind of adjust to that, but. I like it overall. It's a lot of fun playing as a wide receiver.
What do you think are some of the differences, just based on one, a larger field, and two, the rules of the CFL, in terms of what is different about the CFL or Canadian football in general in comparison to American football, where you played in college?
Yeah, a lot of difference. So the one was being like in the middle of the end zone. That was kind of weird. Also, you can actually, like, if you're on off. Catch a ball and the game's tied, I can kick it to the back of the end zone and we get a point. So that was a little weird, kind of like a rugby type deal. We actually had that on us, but they didn't get it. They have, but it's not that hard to adapt to it. And as far it's basically just like playing on the field. In my opinion, I can't really tell the difference between how big it is. Just because there's one extra, so there's more men on the team.
As you guys know, we are talking to Hamilton Tigers Cats wide receiver Jaelon Acklin. Jaelon, I know you grew up a big football fan. Is there a particular player that stood out to you as a kid that you always wanted to play like or you wanted to be?
Yeah, my would probably be soccer. I always wanted to be Cristiano Ronaldo when I was a kid.
Not football?
Football. Probably John Elway.
John Elway.
My favorite as a kid.
You're a wide receiver. You're a wide receiver. Why would you want to be John Elway?
I played quarterback
throughout
high school. That's why I didn't like get any looks in college at wide receiver. I played at like a really small school, but I like John Elway's swag and stuff. I liked how he carried himself. So I always wanted to be like him.
Is there a particular receiver that you think you model your game around the most, whether it's in the NFL, whether it was in college football growing up, or is it still John Elway being the biggest influence on your game?
Nah, I would say I worked out with Ed McCaffrey in Denver. So he played with John Elway too, and my dad always talked about Ed. So Ed McCaffrey is the one. Or Adam Thielen, I like Michael Thomas, but Ed McCaffrey is the one that, just a tough wide receiver, catches everything. Knows where to catch the ball. I would say Ed for sure.
Well, it's funny you say Ed because his son, Christian McCaffrey, is one of the best running backs in the league. So there you go.
Christian works out as I do, Lando.
Mm-hmm.
He has a bigger brother, I think. I forgot his name. Plays wide receiver at the 49ers. So, yeah, athletic family, though.
We're talking to Hamilton Tigers Cats wide receiver Jaelon Acklin. Now, Jaelon, playing in the CFL, the game is completely different from the NFL, the speed of the game, different rules. When you look at the NFL and the rules and how they're trying to change the rules right now, they're trying to take the onside kick away. You can challenge plays now on the field because of the whole Saints debacle against the Rams about 2 years ago. What are your thoughts with the different rules from the NFL to the CFL? And if you actually were brought or you were signed by an NFL team, how would you fit in the NFL style of game with the rules different from the CFL's?
Yeah, that's a tough question because the game's always adapting, especially with the kickoffs and stuff. Special teams players aren't as needed in the NFL anymore as they used to be for like a roster spot for like a return man per se. But in the CFL, you can't be within 5 yards of a returner whenever they catch the ball. So you need a good return man. And, so as far as me, I wouldn't be able to be like a kick returner or anything in the NFL. I don't think, as far as like a system I'd be good in would be like a Patriot system or something like that. I'd always want to play for the Patriots. I've always liked the Giants for some reason. I don't really know why, but I'm a real big fan of Barkley and them. But as far as rules go, I've always played with like American rules. Can be that difficult, but the CFL, there's still rules I don't even know in the CFL. Like there's a whole bunch of like quirky rules, but I just try to ask the players, ask the vets as it goes on.
Is there a difference with the route concepts as a whole with the CFL because of those different rules in comparison to what you see in the NFL? Is it a greater variety? Is it more different in terms of what they specialize in more? What are some of the biggest differences you've noticed?
I'd say it's more down the field, more read routes because you only get 3 downs, whereas in the NFL you get 4 downs to go 10 yards. So you basically only have 2 plays to get 10 yards. So that's why there's not as much running in the CFL as well. Running backs aren't as valued, I'd say, as they are in the NFL. There's a lot more down the field pass plays because you got to get more yards per play than you do in the NFL.
Now, Jaelon, is there a particular player in the NFL that you can kind of compare yourself to? I mean, the speed, the stamina, or just the route running. Is there a particular player that you have watched in the last couple of years that you can compare your game to?
I used to always really look up to Adam Thielen, just because he was from a small school. But one player that I really, really like watching right now is Michael Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, in terms of the NFL wide receiver position as a whole and the CFL wide receiver position as a whole, do you think the rules have really shifted it more towards the wide receivers because of the rules? And do you see that kind of thing in the CFL, or do you think the CFL has done things a little differently?
Yeah, I think the CFL has done it a little differently, but I mean, not too different. CFL is like a big proponent of like player safety, and I know the NFL is getting into that now. And the CFL actually already had the you could review penalties and stuff before. They're kind of like the people who tried it out for the NFL. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know.
We are talking to Hamilton Tiger Cats wide receiver Jaelon Acklin. Now, Jaelon, again, the NFL is completely different from the CFL, and the coaches are completely different. When you watch coaches like Bill Belichick or Andy Reid and watch these guys coach their players, and you see some of the talented players they have, like Tyreek Hill, when you watch these players, is there a particular coach that if you were to, like I said, if you were to go to the NFL, is there a particular coach that you would like to play under? Is it a Bill Belichick? Is it a Andy Reid? Or is it a Harbaugh? Is there a particular coach that you just like his style of game and that you would love to be coached by that particular coach?
Yeah, I mean, there's coaches that I really like. There's no coach that I really dislike, but I really liked Harbaugh whenever I was there. He was a gritty guy. I've always liked Belichick. I feel like he's a blue collar, do things the right way type of guy. And even Andy Reid. Every player that I've played with that had the chance to be under Andy Reid has really liked him. So I mean, obviously anywhere I went in the NFL, I'd like to go. But as far as coaches, Coach Harbaugh is a really, really good coach to me, and he's a really good guy off the field too.
In terms of your teammates, you actually played with 2 All-Stars this year, and Braylon Addison was one, and Brandon Banks also used to play in the NFL for the Redskins. What are some of the things that they've taught you as a wide receiver, and what is your experience like of being their teammates now with Hamilton?
Oh, yeah, it was awesome. They taught me more of like what to do off the field as a pro, which really helped me out. Like Brandon's really good with like dealing with issues off the field. He actually owns like a lot of businesses. He kind of taught me like how to use my money and stuff. And Braylon's kind of taught me like the importance of film. Braylon was one of those guys that was like the first guys in, last guys out of the building. So I'd always stay and watch film with him. We'd go over like the weaknesses of the defense. So they kind of all taught me a little bit of everything.
Jaelon, playing in the CFL, is there a particular corner that you just don't play well against? Is there a particular corner that you love to play against in the CFL?
Nah. I mean, I see all corners as ops. I feel like I do good against any corner I go against. But a corner that I really did respect, he's at the Bears now. His name's Trey Roberson. He played for Calgary. Mm-hmm. He's a very athletic corner that I went against. He was a pretty good guy. He talked a little smack, but yeah, he was nice. He got my respect.
This year, you guys went to the Grey Cup this season, and what was that experience like of that whole playoff run, just the season in general, a very successful season, all the way to the championship?
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. Obviously, would have liked to win it. I've never really won a championship in football.
Really?
But, yeah, it was really cool. It was a cool, like, first experience for me. First year I got to go to the Grey Cup, but hopefully I get to go to some more and then hopefully win.
Jaelon, was football your love in high school, or did you play other sports that you saw yourself as a better athlete in? And why did you choose football over all the other sports that you were good at?
Yeah, no, I always like dreamed of playing professional football. I never really thought of me doing anything else, honestly, even though I went to like a small school and stuff. But I did play basketball and track. I won state in the hurdles and track. But yeah, even whenever I was a little kid, like I'd always envision myself like playing catch outside in the yard and like just being on TV. I don't know. I just always wanted to play football.
You talk about the small schools a lot, and again, between FCS schools and Division II schools, a lot of these teams aren't really as highly touted in terms of thinking that the prospects are going to be good, but at the same time, some of them have been good. We were talking about Adam Thielen. He was D2. Carson Wentz, when healthy, has been very good at FCS school. Do you think those guys get disrespected and that fuels them to a certain extent being from a smaller school?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I know a lot of small school guys that have made it, and you just gotta look at it as like a chip on your shoulder, just like you said. And I mean, it motivates you even that much more every day because you know that like you could have been somewhere else, but this is the team that took a chance on you. So you can't hold it against anyone, but like you just gotta use it as motivation just to be better every day.
One of our fans are asking us on our blog, Carl is asking, what is it like traveling when you're playing in the CFL?
Oh, it's sick. You get to go everywhere. Like Montreal is awesome. That's where they all like speak French and they all drive like foreign cars. Everyone like smokes cigarettes. Like you're in a movie or something. I mean, Calgary's really nice. It's like the mountains. And Vancouver's really beautiful. It's like right by the ocean.
It's beautiful over there. Yep.
You know, it's a totally different, beautiful. It's unreal. So you get to experience like a lot of different places. And me being from the Ozarks, I'm just thankful because a lot of people from here don't get to do that. But I'm lucky enough to get to.
Did you ever watch that TV show on Netflix, The Ozark?
Yeah. That's actually from around where I'm like from.
Really?
The show's based off that. So yeah. I've only watched one season because it kind of made us look bad, but you know, it is what it is. Viewers.
Do you have a favorite moment or play in your CFL career so far, or even your college career if you want to go back that far?
Yeah, probably college right now. I would say we played UNI on homecoming, and I caught a pass, the game winner, with like 6 seconds left. Like my whole family was there, so that was pretty cool. Like you've ever been to UNI Stadium or heard about it? It's like a dome, and they seat like 45,000, so it's pretty loud. It was a pretty cool experience. But yeah, that was probably my favorite catch.
As you guys know, we are talking to Hamilton Tigers Cats wide receiver Jaelon Acklin. And by the way, my producer is has terrible handwriting, so it's very hard to read how he pronounces your name. But anyways, the CFL, and I know you have dreams and aspirations. You would love to play in the NFL. Do you see yourself playing in the NFL? There's a lot of There's the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of CFL players get into the NFL. They've gotten contracts. The Jets had three players coming from the CFL last year that played on their defense with all the injuries. Do you see yourself being picked up or signed by one of these NFL teams in the future?
Maybe if that opportunity came up, I would. But like right now, I'm only like, I hate to be like cliche or whatever, but I'm just focused on Hamilton and, winning a Grey Cup. And then after that, this season, whenever my contract's up, we'll see what happens. But, I'd like to stick in Hamilton for the long haul. But if the opportunity arises, yeah, for sure, I'd love to, give it another run at NFL again.
It's interesting to me. I want to, and I'm sure you're not going to tell me how much you make every single year, but I'm very interested and intrigued on how much a CFL player makes in the CFL from the NFL. I mean, you don't have to tell me how much you make, but borderline numbers. How much do an average CFL player make from a contract every single year?
I'd say average, you probably make 110 Canadian.
Really?
110,000.
That's not bad.
Yeah, so it's pretty nice. I mean, it's nothing.
Well, you're not making millions of dollars, obviously.
Driving like Teslas or anything, but it is nice.
Do you think, in terms of the Canadian following as a whole, because it's a hockey country, really, that's its big sport, they love lacrosse, they love a lot of other things more than they did football, do you think that has hurt the CFL as a whole, or do you think the Canadians as a whole really embrace football more than people realize?
Oh yeah, Canadians embrace football more than I ever realized. I don't know about everyone else, but yeah, like the fans are pretty ruthless up there. Like I've been to a couple places. I've been to some pro games. I even played like in Baltimore, and it's honestly pretty much the same atmosphere that you get there at some places. I mean, like Vancouver doesn't have as much as a following, but like you go to Winnipeg, you go to Saskatchewan seats like 70,000 people.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean it's all like basically just like the league in down south, honestly.
As you guys know, we are talking to Hamilton Tigers Cats wide receiver Jaelon Acklin. Now, Jaelon, I grew up, I was a wide receiver too when I played high school football. I grew up a Jerry Rice fan. I also loved Brandon Marshall when he played for the Broncos. Was there a particular player growing up, you're 24 years old, that you followed and you wanted to be like? I mean, I know you said the quarterback, John Elway, but you're a wide receiver now, and you're looking at the position now, and you want to try to characterize the way you play at the position. Was there a particular player that you grew up as a wide receiver that you liked, that stood out to you out of all the wide receivers in the NFL?
Yeah, but I'd have to go college and say Michael Crabtree at Texas Tech. Mm-hmm. I used to always watch his games with, who was that quarterback? Graham Harrell. Mm-hmm. I actually had their jerseys, the Texas Tech jerseys. I used to watch them as a kid.
He also played with Johnny Manziel, didn't he?
Crabtree.
No, that was Texas A&M.
Texas A&M, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love Johnny Manziel too, but wide receiver, Crabtree.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, in terms of the way the offensive NFL schemes are shifted now, there's a lot of wide receivers lining up as running backs, vice versa. You see running backs that are pass-catching backs and line up all over the place. Could you see the CFL kind of adopting a lot of those concepts, those college-type offenses, motion-type offenses? Do you see that kind of transitioning happening, or do you think it's going to be a little more sticking to their values?
Yeah, honestly, you can see it. We saw it a little bit last year, even with like our running backs. you have to be versatile now with all the defenses and what they do to kind of counteract it. And we had a really good running back that was able to do a little bit of everything. He played wide out, run A and B too. But yeah, you can see it shifting a little bit in Canada, but I don't know how much it'll shift just because we have 2 downs and the Canadian ratio. A lot of people are using Canadian running backs now and using 4 American wide receivers. So if you don't know about the Canadian ratio, you have to have like a certain number of Canadian players on the field to American. So it gets really complicated, and I don't even know it. I just know whenever I'm on the field and whenever I'm not. So yeah, I don't know, because you'd have to find a really good Canadian running back to be able to, a really versatile Canadian running back to be able to do that. Which there is some, like the one at Oklahoma State coming up, but I mean, how much it'll make an effect on the CFL, though.
In terms of the CFL offenses with the bigger field, you mentioned that there's 3 downs. Do you think that certain coaches play it differently in terms of style, in terms of the scheme? Is there more concepts with play action? Is there more concepts? You mentioned earlier with deep passes. Is there more concepts, though, that are very different in terms of the variety of the coaches in comparison to the NFL?
No, there's not as much variety. Like, everyone kind of runs the same stuff in the CFL, and it's a copycat league.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we'll install something, and it'll work, and then the next week you'll see a team run the exact same play, and then it's like, I don't know, because the league is so different than the NFL. You can't copy like what the NFL does. Like, everyone kind of copies each other in a CFL, and whatever works, like the next team will do it. So it's kind of hard to, and there's only 9 teams, so it makes it hard to, change stuff up a lot. And most of the coaches, they all kind of have the same play style. It just goes on like what their core values are.
Jaelon, who is the biggest smartass in your locker room?
The biggest what?
Smartass. The smart, the prankster, the biggest prankster in your locker room.
The biggest prankster?
Mm-hmm.
Probably Jeremiah Masoli or Mike Filer. Jeremiah Masoli, the quarterback at Oregon a long time ago.
I remember him. He was awesome.
Do you have a story that you could tell us?
Yeah, actually I do. One time, what did Jeremiah do that was so funny? So him and Mike Filer, which is our center, always play pranks on each other. And Jeremiah taped, because Jeremiah tore his ACL, so he was out. And while Mike was out at practice, and it was like a cold, rainy day, like everyone was like super sore. It was like the day after a game. Jeremiah taped his phone all the way up and then like put a marker on it and made it. He taped it in like 2 rolls of tape too, and it was super thick. And he like wrote down like the numbers on it. It looked like foam that was like taped up. Oh, it was so funny. And then Mike was like actually really mad about it, but he got over it.
How about traveling? Do you guys? When I played a lot of travel ice hockey, I played for Team USA for almost 4 years. I was one of the captains of the team, and I was a big prankster on my team, my hockey team. And I remember I was in Canada. I was in Montreal, and what we did was at night I had 2 roommates, and what we did was we tied one of the backup goalie's hands behind his back, and we tied his feet to the post of the bed, and we took shaving cream and we shaved lines in the back of his head. He did not wake up. He was a dead sleeper. I don't know if you guys know what a dead sleeper is. Once he falls asleep, it would take you could throw a football at the back of his head. He wouldn't get up. Okay. And we used to do so many prankster things to him in particular, but we've done it to so many things. Have you ever done anything as far as a prank is concerned that was outrageous or crazy, or did anybody put a prank on you which was outrageous or crazy?
No, I can't say. I've honestly had pretty good luck with pranks. I'm trying to think of something. I'm sure the vet did something to me, but I can't really remember. But
of course you can't. You don't want to embarrass yourself.
Because but I've never been much of a prankster just because I feel like if I did that to someone, then they'd give it back to me worse. So I try to just stay in my own stay in my own lane.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm sure I've been pranked. I know I had to dress up for Halloween. They made me dress up like Tom Cruise off of Top Gun because I had a mustache. That's about as bad. Like I had to aviators, like yeah, and they all laughed at me. But I mean, that's about as bad as it got. But I honestly look good, so I didn't.
You look more like a goose, not a maverick. I can tell you that. You look like more goose than you do maverick. I can tell you that. But before
it was goose.
Before we, yeah,
it was goose.
you definitely look more like goose than you do maverick.
Yeah, they call me Goose.
Really, they do?
Oh,
they do? They call you Goose?
Yeah, they call me Goose around the locker room.
Well, you kind of look like Goose. You do. You definitely do.
I appreciate that. But I take it as a compliment.
was that part of the irony of why they made you dress up as Maverick?
Well, I guess that's his answer right there. Before we let you go, is there a particular person, that you looked up to in your family that pushed you to go for your dreams and now play for the CFL? Was it your mom, your father, your sister, your brother, your aunt, your uncle, your grandparents? Was there a particular person that always pushed you for success when it comes to sports?
Probably my mom.
Really?
My mom has pushed me the most. She actually battled breast cancer whenever I was in high school.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And her mom passed away. And so she's pretty tough. Like, she's the toughest person that I know. So if I ever got down about, like, losing a game or something, she would just tell me, it could be way worse, Jaelon. And then I'd be like, yeah, it could. So, she just kind of drove me to be who I am today. And even, like, now, like, if I ever have, like, a bad game or, like, something, I'll just call her, and then she'll set me straight and tell me to go to the weight. I'll be like, all right, Mom.
How was your mom doing?
Yeah, she pushes me to be the best.
How was your mom doing?
She's doing good. She's I think she's like folding clothes or doing laundry right now. She's always doing something around the house.
Have you ever been to New York? Jaelon?
I've been once. I've only been to like the Albany part. I've never been to like
Albany. Okay.
Yeah, Albany.
So you never been to Long Island? You never been to New York City? You never got a chance to see the bright lights of New York?
No. I want to though one day. But
I'll tell you what. If you guys ever have the opportunity to come out here, I would love to have you in the studio. Love to do a show with you joining us live, and we'll show you around New York City. I would love to show you around the great New York City. If you ever come out here, we'll definitely stay in contact. We would love for you to come and join us on a live radio show.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'll tell you this right now. If there's anybody that knows New York as well as anybody, it would be me. I've lived here practically my whole life, and we live in Long Island. And if you don't know what Long Island is, you've heard of the Hamptons. So that's where all the movie stars and all the athletes go out, in the summertime and hang out and party it up. Well, obviously not with COVID-19, but the Hamptons are very well known out here in Suffolk County and Nassau County. But there's 5 boroughs, and it's a beautiful city if you're just coming to visit. If you're coming to live, run for your life.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I've heard. But, yeah, for sure, if I ever come and visit, I'll keep in touch with you guys. I'd love to come in sometime.
Absolutely. Jaelon, why don't you tell the fans how they can find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram. Not much of a Twitter guy, at Jaelon_Acklin. And then that's pretty much all I got really is Instagram and Twitter. I'm not much of a TikTok guy, like TikTok.
Thank God.
Well, Jaelon, I want you guys to follow. I want you to follow us on Instagram. I want you to follow us on Twitter. I don't know if you're following us yet, but I want to give a shout out to Jillian and Ricky. They're the ones that reached out to you. They read a couple of things about you, a couple of stories about you, and said we have to get Jaelon on. You sound like a really good kid. I hope all your dreams and admirations come true, and I hope one day we see you in the NFL. I mean, we've seen, look at Adam Thielen, what he has done. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's a remarkable story. Adam Thielen, who wasn't even drafted. He was a walk-on with the Minnesota Vikings because he's from Minnesota, and he's come down to be, in the last 3 years, one of the best wide receivers in the league. So it's a remarkable story, and being that you're 6'2" and you're, I don't know what did you run your 40 in? What did you run your 40?
4.48.
Really? Wow.
That's nice.
Yeah.
You're pretty fast,
I got
man.
some wheels, guys.
I got some wheels.
Not bad. I got a 39-inch vertical.
Really?
Wow. Kind of
Wow.
athletic, not gonna lie.
So you could play. You play basketball. So you play basketball.
Second ball.
Really? Well, I'll be the judge of that. When you come out to New York.
Take me to the pages.
Oh, well, I'll tell you this. When you come out to New York, we'll have to play a little one-on-one, my friends.
I'll broadcast.
That's it.
What did you say? I'm sorry, Jaelon.
But I'm down with that.
Absolutely. So we'll stay in touch. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And definitely, if your family ever wants to come out here, I'd love to show you around. I have a lot of connections out here as far as VIP things when it comes to wineries and stuff like that. If you guys ever want to come out here, we'll definitely show you around.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me on, too.
Absolutely. As you guys know, that is Hamilton Tigers Cats wide receiver, Jaelon Acklin. Interesting kid. Funny kid. Yeah. Very confident kid. And that's what you want. You want confidence, because confidence is where it's at, ladies and gentlemen. That's for sure. We're not going to a break, Speedy, because we have about 18 minutes left. What was the main story we wanted to get into today?
We're going to get into who was the best player from each decade or different decades in sports that never won a championship.
From when to when? What are you talking about?
So particular decades, like the 1970s, the 1980s, who played the prime of their career.
All right, so you go in the 1970s, and I'll go to the 1980s, and then we'll go from there.
All right, so I'll start in the NFL for the 1970s. I think one that definitely comes to mind is Fran Tarkenton. He went to 4 Super Bowls, and I think was very undervalued as a quarterback in that time. Everybody talks about Terry Bradshaw and Roger Staubach as being the big guys, but he was kind of undervalued as that other guy, and he was a great statistical quarterback, especially for that time. I believe he's in the top 10 in touchdowns all time, or if not top 20. And again, constantly undervalued. Ahmad Rashad was probably the only great receiver he had. It's not like the Vikings later with Chris Carter and Randy Moss. They didn't really have that. It was more of a defensive team. They didn't really have those offensive skill players to help them. And 4 Super Bowls, unfortunately, they lost all of them if you're a Vikings fan. But I think he's definitely one that's undervalued in the 70s.
I would say Jim Kelly. I mean, in the Buffalo years, the late 80s, early 90s, yep. Jim Kelly was one of the most underrated, unappreciated quarterbacks in the NFL. He never won a Super Bowl. He went to 4 consecutive Super Bowls, and he never won one. Unfortunately, bad coaching and bad special teams in the Super Bowl really cost them in 2 of the 4 Super Bowls. But Jim Kelly, to me, not only the way he has fought cancer over the last couple of years, right. The guy is a fighter. And if you listen to Boomer Esiason or even Joe Montana or Steve Young, they talk about the heroic, hardworking player of what Jim Kelly was as a player. So Jim Kelly, in my eyes, in football, in the late 80s, early 90s, was, to me, that type of player.
All right, so I'll go to the 80s now for NBA. I mean, there's a lot of them you could pick from based on the fact that the Celtics and Lakers were in the finals every year. I'll go with a guy named I'll go with George Gervin. We talk about it all the time, guys that were great three-point shooters before the three-point line. Again, the Spurs were a new ABA team at that time. I think because of that ends up getting undervalued because that was pre-Popovich and, again, pre-three-point line. But Gervin was a great player throughout. He was great before David Robinson got there. And I think he's somebody that's definitely undervalued when you talk about the great shooters of all time in terms of, again, there's no three-point line, but he still could shoot it from long range.
It's such a good, and I see what Carl's saying. I would say Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley was one of the best small forward, power forwards in the NBA at the time that he was dominating in the 90s, especially in the mid-90s. He won an MVP with the Suns. He took Michael Jordan to a Game 5 in the NBA Finals, and really he was the MVP that year. So I think Charles Barkley, really, he kind of changed the game because everybody looked at Charles Barkley as he wasn't fat, but he was a big man he was a troublemaker. He was a bully on the court. He pushed people around, and he tried to push Shaquille O'Neal around so many times, but Shaq wasn't having it. But Charles Barkley was one of those guys that deserved to win a championship. He went to the Rockets. He tried to win a championship with Hakeem Olajuwon, and the cast that they had of it just didn't work out. He went to the Suns from the 76ers, and he played for those 76ers teams that were just not good. Right. They were not good at all. And Charles Barkley, you say what you want, he wasn't a top draft pick either. So nobody thought that Charles Barkley was going to be the player he became. So Charles Barkley, definitely.
All right, so I'll go to the 90s now, and I think this one's simple.
I'm just throwing players out. I don't care if it's a 90s
well, no, we can switch off different decades. That's fine. So I'm going to go 90s, and I'm going to go baseball. I think this one's pretty obvious. Ken Griffey Jr. I think Ken Griffey Jr. is thought of as maybe the most well-rounded player in terms of from a hitting perspective that you could see. Obviously, there were pitchers that were great in terms of being well-rounded in different types, but I think Ken Griffey Jr. as a whole really, again, Gold Gloves, 630 home runs, just a little bit of everything with Ken Griffey Jr., and I think he really defined the game. Again, never won a championship. Had some good Mariners teams, but again, an organization that wasn't great.
I would say in the 2000 era at hockey, John Van Beesbrook. John Van Beesbrook, who in 96, first of all, he was let go and he was traded to the Vancouver Canucks in 93-94 when they had to decide if they were going to stick with Mike Richter or go with Van Beesbrook. They decided to bring in the younger the goaltender in Mike Richter and trade Van Beesbrook to Vancouver. Then Vancouver put him in the expansion draft. He was the number 1 pick from the Florida Panthers, and it took him a couple of years, and he took the Florida Panthers in 96, the year of the rat, to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Colorado Avalanche, which had Patrick Waugh and Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg, and one of the greatest teams, one of the greatest offensive teams ever developed and really put together in those years. And it went 4 games, and he got swept, but remarkable. He had a remarkable career, and the winningest goaltender in United States history. Yep. So, to me, John Van Beesbrook was right there. A guy that never won a championship, took a bad team to a Stanley Cup Finals, and almost won a Stanley Cup. So I would say John Van Beesbrook.
I'll stick with that same theme. I'll take Pavel Bure, the best player on that team. Pavel Bure was one of those 90s wingers that was very iconic, and again was one of those few, because a lot of times in hockey you don't see those stars that don't win titles a lot of the time. There's not very many of them, a lot of those big names, but he was one of them. You're right, Vancouver was not a great team as a whole, but Bure was a phenomenal player. Over 1,000 points in his career. He was just absolutely fantastic. Again, just couldn't get that final cup. Again, pressure of Vancouver, just not being a great team as a whole, but great player.
Phillip Rivers. I mean, if you look at him as a quarterback, especially when 2004 he was traded, there was a swap with him and Eli Manning. He was going to, a lot of people thought he was going to the Giants. Right. Eli Manning's father did not want him to play for the San Diego Chargers. He wanted being swapped with Eli Manning, and probably, if you really look at the numbers, he had a better career than Eli Manning has offensively. I mean, obviously, Eli won two championships, but Phillip Rivers, say whatever you want. Phillip Rivers, if you compare his numbers to him and Eli Manning and Ben Roethlisberger, he has better numbers than both of them. So Phillip Rivers, who is a Hall of Famer, might never win a championship. He could, maybe with Indianapolis. We'll see what happens this year with the talented team that they have. But Phillip Rivers, who doesn't get enough respect, he really doesn't, because if you look at his numbers and you look what he's done in the league for the 16, 17 years he's been in the game, it's been absolutely remarkable. On a San Diego team, let's be honest, has not really, besides the first 4 or 5 years with LaDainian Tomlinson, they really haven't built the team around him, and they didn't build it enough for them to be a championship competitive team. So Phillip Rivers would be my 2000s.
Right, I think the year after they lost the Jets that year, since before that their team was great, but after that they really have not been run well. I'll stay in the NFL and I'll stay in the 2000s. I'll say Julius Peppers. Julius Peppers, a guy that is the best pass rusher in my time watching football that I've seen. I think he had one of the best speed moves. Obviously, statistically was phenomenal, over 150 sacks in his career. Absolutely phenomenal player. He went to the Super Bowl with the Panthers. I think he did not go to a Super Bowl after that, but he went to the Super Bowl with the Panthers and had great longevity, even with Chicago later on, with Green Bay later on, moving him to an outside linebacker. He really was steady throughout his career, even though he got limited snaps later on. one of the best pass rushers of all time, and the best that I have ever seen in my time watching football. Obviously, I'm very young, but he's the best I've ever seen in terms of a pass rusher.
Before Ovechkin won his title a couple of years ago, I thought Ovechkin was never going to win a title.
Same.
I really didn't think he was going to win a title, and it's a remarkable career that Alexander Ovechkin has had, and probably he could break Wayne Gretzky's goal record, and he quite possibly could do that if he scores 50 goals for the. Well, this year he fell short because did he fall short? Did he have? He had close to 50.
I think
goals.
he had 47 this year.
Yes, but and you're still going to have a playoff, so there's a good opportunity for him to do that, but. I'm trying to think of players right now that really stand out to me, and I can't. NBA, I look at the NBA as a whole, and I know that all the great players played with. I would say Chris Paul. Okay,
that's a good one.
I would put Chris Paul there because Chris Paul. First of all, he's had a remarkable year with the OKC Thunder. Nobody thought that he was going to have the season that he had this year, and now there's trade talks of him going to the Knicks or going to one of these teams that are going to be a competitive team moving forward, but. Chris Paul, to me, in the last 10, 15 years, has been the best point guard in the NBA, defensively and offensively. And you talk about guys in comparisons to him. The only person I can compare to his game in the last 20, 25 years is Jason Kidd. So, and he's a better shooter than Jason Kidd. So, Jason Kidd won one title with the Mavericks at the end of his career. So, I don't know if Chris Paul will ever win because obviously he's at the tail end of his career, but Chris Paul has had a remarkable career. So it would be Chris Paul.
Yeah, unless he goes back to the Clippers or something like that. He's probably not going to win a title. But again, you're right. What he has done this year is remarkable. I'll stay with basketball. I'll go with another point guard. I'll go with Allen Iverson. I think Allen Iverson, another guy that played on a lot of very bad teams. They had Dikembe Mutombo, but could you even name anyone else on those teams after that?
Right.
Those 76ers teams. So he was able to.
I could name a bunch of them.
Well, right. But I'm saying could the average fan do?
No.
It's going to be hard to find a lot of those guys. They really did a good job in that playoff when they went to the NBA Finals. Really just a great playoff player as a whole. For his size, wasn't a great defender, but wasn't a terrible defender either for his size. And again, great shooter, great passer, one of the best ball handlers we've ever seen. And again, it was just a shame that the 76ers have been so poorly run for a long time.
And I see Carl writing Joe Thomas, and Joe Thomas is one of the best,
Absolutely.
one of the best and most underrated offensive linemen in the NFL, and retired at a young age, and he lost a lot of weight. He looks great. He really does look great. And Joe Thomas played for that terrible Browns team, where it seems like every single player that goes to the Browns completely disappears. Jack Conklin is going to be the next one that's going to fall and disappear right now with the Browns. But the player that stands out, and everybody's going to say that, and you're saying it right now, is Mike Trout. Mike Trout has been the best player in the MLB for the last 7 years, but he's only 26 years old. He still has a long way to go, and I do believe eventually Mike Trout will win a championship. He's too good to not win a championship, and if it's not going to be with the Anaheim Angels, it'll be with another team. So I do believe that Mike Trout will eventually win a title, but there's a play. I'm trying to think of players that just stand out because, again, we're just doing this off the head.
Right.
I think in baseball, and you said Ken Griffey Jr., Don Mattingly. Don Mattingly never won a championship. Don Mattingly, who was 7 or 8 time Gold Glove winner, he won a couple of batting titles. He probably one of the best 5-year stretches that we've ever seen a first baseman ever have. So, and he played for the Yankees, and of course he retired in '95, the year before the Yankees win a title with the young Derek Jeter. So Don Mattingly had a sensational career. He should be a Hall of Famer. I don't care. Everybody says, well, he didn't have the longevity. If you look at his numbers in the 13, 12 years that he played, tell me a first baseman that played as well as he did the 5 straight years that he played. And I'll tell you right now, go look at the numbers. There's not one. There's not one. Even the Albert Pujols. You go look at it. You compare Albert Pujols' best 5 years in a row to Don Mattingly. I would tell you this right now. Don Mattingly's numbers are better than Albert Pujols in those 5 years, kids. So Don Mattingly, absolutely.
I'll stay with baseball. I'll go with one of the first good relief pitchers that we saw. Never won a title, went to a World Series, Raleigh Fingers. I think somebody that gets undervalued. Didn't have quite the longevity, but in the 80s was one of the best relief pitchers. He took about Dennis Eckersley, guys like Bruce Sutter at that time, and a lot of those other closers. But again, he was a guy that was very undervalued. Obviously, the iconic mustache is what he's known for, but he was undervalued at that time and was on a lot of teams that were up and down for the most part. A good Brewers team in '82 that went to the World Series, but he was one of the best relief pitchers in an era where relief pitchers were still kind of a new thing.
A guy that everybody knows of. He's still playing in the major leagues, who I don't know if will ever win because he just has his team is jinxed, and that's the Dodgers and Clayton Kershaw. Clayton Kershaw, to me, has been the most dominant pitcher in baseball. Him and Max Scherzer have been the two most dominant pitchers in baseball in the last 15 years. And if you look at their numbers, and right now, Kershaw has been in the league, I think, for 11 or 12. But,
yeah, I think he debuted in '09.
Yeah, but I'm saying between the last 15 years, those two guys have been the best pitchers in baseball. And Max Scherzer just won his first title last year. And I don't know if Clayton Kershaw will ever have the opportunity to win a championship. The dominance that he has been as a pitcher in a regular season, if he were to retire 3-4 years ago, he was a Hall of Famer. Right. His numbers are when you try to compare guys' numbers, especially pitchers' numbers, to Clayton Kershaw, there might be maybe 7 or 8 pitchers in Major League history that you can compare to Clayton Kershaw as far as regular season numbers. So he's had a remarkable career, and he's probably never going to win a title. So Clayton Kershaw is definitely on my list.
All right. So I'll go back to the NFL. This is probably somebody that could be both 90s and 2000s, even though it was more 2000s. And it's a guy we talk about a lot. It's probably the second best receiver of all time, Terrell Owens. He was a guy that, again, he played in a Super Bowl, played phenomenal in a Super Bowl with a big bad injury, and, again, almost single-handedly willed the Eagles to beating the Patriots. They were very close in that game. And, again, he's been great throughout his career. Obviously, he's bumped around teams because of his antics, but again, I think those were overblown a lot of the time too. Was phenomenal with the 49ers, helped Steve Young have the longevity that he had, helped Jeff Garcia when he was there at the beginning of his career. And again, it really, in my opinion, been the second best receiver of all time. And again, arguably one of the best overall football players.
Jeff, we have a new number. I know Jeff is trying to call the show. It is 631-260-1601. Jeff, if you want to call the show, it's 631-260-1601. Okay? We do not have the 965 number anymore. Barry Sanders, call is right. Barry Sanders, who to me has been the best running back, in my eyes, the best running back of all time. Him or Jim Brown. You can argue your points. Jim Brown was definitely there with him. But absolutely, Barry Sanders, dominant running back who completely dominated in every stretch of the game, the running game, the passing game. He really revolutionized the running back position, especially that we've seen over the last couple of years. So
yeah, I think I agree with you. I think he is the best running back of all time as well, and just playing on a very, very dysfunctional team. I'll take another receiver. I'll take one from this generation. That's Larry Fitzgerald. I think Larry Fitzgerald as a whole, when you look at it, is really, really doing a good job. Got a team that was robbed of a Super Bowl back against the Steelers, and I think he's been one of the best hands you ever seen.
Why don't you call back Jeff? Because you're supposed to be the producer, and of course you couldn't even answer the damn phone. So it really annoys me when you can't answer a damn phone. But to me, Calvin Johnson, what Calvin Johnson has done as a wide receiver in the league, the dominance of a player that he was for the 9 years that he was in the league, there is not many wide receivers that we can really compare and contrast to the talents of Calvin Johnson. Do we have him on the phone or what?
Jeff, you there?
Jeff?
Yes, buddy. How are you?
Well, besides Speedy making the mistakes that he makes during the show all the time, we're good.
Well, that's very good. You know, I realize you guys are doing all kinds of crazy things over there. I just kind of wanted to switch gears and talk. You know, there's been a lot of news recently and stuff, and I wasn't sure about what you guys thought of the New York Yankees MVP for the last 4 years.
What was that? What are you talking about? Aaron Judge?
Manfred covering up sign stealing and cheating by the Yankees, covering up. Rob Manfred is the Yankees MVP.
So what you're saying, and I heard the story that was coming out that the Yankees were sign stealing. You know, and I know, Jeff, and we've argued the points here. Every single team sign steals. Nobody did what the Houston Astros did. Okay, nobody. The Yankees didn't bang on garbage pails.
This lawsuit filed in court alleges, and there's a redacted version that's coming out, but this lawsuit alleges what the Yankees did was worse, and Manfred helped cover it up.
Well, again, I haven't read the story yet, and I'll have the opportunity a little bit later to read the story. And if it is true, well, then the Yankees should be punished for it. But again, we don't know what the truth is and what's not the truth. All we hear is stories. So I would like to read that story.
I mean, you really hate to see it, though. I mean, you honestly hate to see it. You know, I mean, as a Red Sox fan who's just been persecuted by just angry Yankee fans for
I don't know
years,
about that.
accusing them of, cheating, and then to watch the commissioner come out and say the Red Sox weren't cheating at all and totally exonerated them. And now for this to happen, you just hate to see it.
Well, it hurts. It hurts the game of baseball just as much as it would hurt any sport when you're hearing cheating. And just
No, I was actually being facetious.
I know.
I love to see it. Anything bad happens to the Yankees, it's amazing.
But why? It hurts the game. It hurts the game. Even Yankees, Mets, Boston Red Sox, any one of those teams, even in professional basketball or football.
Because people like you
people
are
like me.
super smug about other people. Oh, you're cheating. Oh, the Yankees don't cheat. Other people cheat. No, dude. The Yankees are the most dastardly organization inside of Major League Baseball, and you just hate to see it.
So hold on one second. So wait a second. So we're sitting here and we're arguing, well, the Yankees are a terrible organization. They cheat, all that other stuff that you're saying. And we've come out and said this over and over again on this show, Jeff, that we all believe that it's not just the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Mets, or any of these teams. Every single team has cheated in some kind of way on sign steals. And we have talked to coaches and managers throughout the last couple of weeks, and every one of them said it's been a part of the game for years. But not banging on garbage pails, not using electronics in the dugout, trying to figure out what the sign is, what sign is coming down, or if they're going to steal and we're going to do a hit and run. We haven't seen that except with the Astros. So again, you're absolutely right. I know you like making fun of the Yankees, but even in football. Do you think there's nothing going on behind the scenes? You have these iPads. Every single player on every single position has an iPad on that bench.
But that's legal in football.
Yeah.
But that's legal in football.
No, it is legal, but we don't know what's on those iPads. We don't know what they're seeing on those iPads. You know what I'm saying? We don't know.
I mean, they're league issued iPads.
Yeah, that's fine. So are the headsets. So were the headsets. Remember what was going on? Remember what was going on in the league? That there were sign calls coming all the way from the top to the headsets, and the league was trying to change the rules and have somebody be listening to the conversations so they're not cheating. I mean, just because they're league
officials,
league profiled. Go ahead.
And I like to break your balls because you're a Yankees fan, and that's fine.
No, but I'm just saying. You're not breaking anything. You're right.
But here's the serious question to the whole thing. Now, this is a serious question. I'm done breaking your balls about being a Yankee fan and coming up with conspiracy.
Oh, you're not breaking my balls, bro.
Here's the real, right? But here's the thing. Mm-hmm. If this were to be true, okay, just if. I'm not saying it is. If, because it's alleged in a lawsuit that isn't proof or anything like that. You can sue anyone. Got it. Okay. Can Rob Manfred be the commissioner of baseball anymore?
No.
If that was the case, if he covered up what the Yankees were doing, he has to be fired, right?
I've been saying this over and over again. Rob Manfred just got the job about a year and a half, 2 years ago. His contract is up in 2024. There is no way in hell he's keeping that job. I'm telling you right now. In 2024, the owners and the players union will not allow him to continue moving forward. Bud Selig has been cheating and doing all these nasty things all those years with steroids and trying to hide things because he needed to save baseball. And when it came down push over shove, he wouldn't protect the players. And that's why some of the players like Alex Rodriguez, Barry Bonds, and Roger Clemens probably will never see a lick in the Hall of Fame because of Bud Selig. But Bud Selig's in the Hall of Fame right now. To me, it's appalling. And then we were just talking about this about, 2-3 months ago. Why isn't George Steinbrenner in the Hall of Fame? Why isn't he in the Hall of Fame? Bud Selig goes to the Hall of Fame, but George Steinbrenner hasn't. And George Steinbrenner really changed the game of baseball. And this is why there are TV deals. The Yes Network was one of the first networks built in professional sports. He changed everything. George Steinbrenner changed everything when it came to making money and revenue for teams and organizations for the long haul. So why is Bud Selig, who was a car salesman, he owned a used car, dealership, and he became the commissioner of the MLB all those years, and he completely made it a mockery. And then all of a sudden, Mark McGwire and Sosa have this home run, back and forth competition, and now all of a sudden, you're never going to see those guys go to the Hall of Fame because of Bud Selig, and he was hiding everything from day one. So again, go ahead.
So just to recap 2020, we have coronavirus, we have a lockdown, we have murder hornets. The Yankees did cheat and the Red Sox didn't. What a world we're living in, huh?
Well, I'll tell you this: the Patriots cheated numerous amount of times. So if the Yankees cheated,
you keep lobbing.
I just think it's funny. I just think it's funny.
It's a deflection away from.
I love you, Jeff. You know that, right?
Cheating.
I love you.
Speedy, how does it feel now to be the least hated baseball organization in New York now?
Well,
right?
I get.
We're the wonderful Yankees.
We're
wonderful. No. Turns out the Mets are doing it better.
No.
Hold on one second.
Our own fans hate them. So
hold on one second. The Mets are doing it better. How are the Mets doing it better? Please explain to me. They didn't. How do you know they didn't cheat? Did you hang out with them? Were you hanging out in their dugouts?
It's the Wilpons. They'll be too cheap to buy the technology.
That's not in the lawsuit.
Come on, Jeff. You can't honestly sit here and tell me.
Did Bud Selig help cover up Mets cheating? No, it was Yankees cheating. He helped cover up.
So you're going to honestly tell me, and you're going to sit here and tell me that the Mets, you think the Mets never cheated, or they never stole signs, or did stuff that were completely illegal in the MLB rules?
If they did, it was because they acquired a Yankees.
Oh, stop, Jeff. Oh, stop, Jeff. You sound stupid now.
Jeff, it's the Wilpons. They're going to be too cheap to buy all that stuff anyway.
Right, exactly. They're still operating off of VHS.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with it. And again, and I know, Jeff, you call the show, and I love when you call the show and you make some good points. But and this story is coming out that the Yankees did cheat. And if it is true, I mean, it's just a story. There's no proof to it. I haven't seen anything yet, but I'm going to read the story because it did come out before the show. I did see something that the Yankees, there was some kind of cover up with Rob Manfred. We don't know, and if it is true, he should be fired now. If this is true, and he was cheating,
if this is true. It's groundbreaking because you'll have a new commissioner. And it'll take down the most powerful team.
Do you know who I think should be the new commissioner?
You'll have to see players. You
know who I think? No, there's an ex-player that I think would be a great commissioner for the MLB, and I've said it already, and I'll say it again. Cal Ripken Jr. I think he would be a great commissioner for the MLB. I think.
A good one.
Yeah, I think
probably a good one.
I think Cal Ripken Jr. would be perfect right now in that suit, and he already came out and said.
I don't think that you'd ever see that.
Why not?
I think he would be good. Well, because he's a former player, and owners would rather hire a lawyer who would be more of an arbiter, who might be fair. And Cal Ripken, because the owners
isn't Cal Ripken?
Who that's going to be, and I think
Cal Ripken has a law degree. I think he has a law degree. I'm pretty sure he does.
But he was also a former player, and the owner, just the perception from the owners would probably be he would be more likely to side with players. And so I don't think that you're really ever going to see a player be a commissioner, unfortunately, because I do agree with you. I think Cal Ripken would be a good one, but I think it's going to be some pencil-pushing nerd that knows contracts and how to sign Pepsi to a endorsement deal, or Coca-Cola, or McDonald's.
You and me can make those deals, Jeff. Me and you can make those deals. I mean, you can't honestly sit here, and I'm not taking shots at any of the commissioners in professional sports because it's not as easy as it seems. But if you're running an organization that's $1 billion organization where so many fans, millions and millions of fans are going to live games and they're buying all the different apparel and all that other stuff, you can't honestly tell me that me and you couldn't find a way to get Hyundai or Nike to absolutely be sponsors of my organization.
Well, I think that I would make a good commissioner. I already solved the NFL's kneeling problem, and not to brag, Errol, I do actually think it's the best solution I've heard to the kneeling problem from anyone. I think I've come up with the best solution in the kneeling.
What's that?
All the players agree not to kneel during the national anthem.
I agree with you.
That's mandatory. So you don't kneel. In exchange, right, the NFL, the owners own the NFL along with the NFL Network. So in exchange for not kneeling, the NFL Network agrees to give up a 2-hour time slot from 8 to 10 to talk about players' charities, have players on and talk about, Nate Solder from the Giants has a cancer charity because he beat cancer. You talk about the issues the players want to talk about, social justice issues, their charities, their community work, things like that. You would give them a platform, and then they wouldn't kneel for the national anthem. That would be their outlet to talk about the things socially that they want to accomplish.
Doesn't it bother you where you have the players running? And I've said this in the beginning of the show. I was talking about LeBron James, how he runs the league. He runs the NBA. And to me, it's completely appalling when you look at a player like that. He's not even an owner. He's a multi-billionaire now. This guy, he got the $1 billion contract from Nike. And this guy just keeps opening his mouth, not only to the world, but to innocent people, that bystanders that he shouldn't be speaking to. And when I think of LeBron James, and I
want to know, it's damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Because because here's the reality of that. People are vilifying LeBron James, as you are right now, for speaking out, right? And then if you remember, all you got to do is go and watch The Last Dance, which was wildly popular, and I know that you watched it. But when people wanted Michael Jordan to speak out and he stayed quiet, he was vilified for staying quiet.
Absolutely. But the world has changed. The world has changed now. And that's why I think when you look at LeBron James and what LeBron James is doing, he wants to use his platform just like Kaepernick would. You have no right to use the game's platform to speak out. If you want to speak out on your own terms, do it on your own terms. Don't be doing it when
that's what he's doing, though. He's using his Twitter account.
Right now he is. But you know LeBron James, who he is as a player and what he is as a player is completely different from me and you. I mean, if me and you spoke out and said something like LeBron James, we would be called a racist.
I think that you're unfairly singling out LeBron James, probably because you just don't like a couple of the issues that he's discussed, because he's not the only one that's ever done it. I mean, you can go back, decades ago with Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf.
Right.
He was the original dude, basically, that sat during the national anthem.
Right.
His career wasn't ruined. He wasn't, you can talk about the entire L.A. Clippers team banding together and turning their jerseys inside out when Donald Sterling said all of those racist things.
I remember that, yep.
So, I mean, you're just singling out LeBron James. So many other people have done it.
Again, now I'm reading what Carl's saying. He says, it is easy to voice now, Errol. Come on. I'm not voicing anything. I've been talking about this. Carl, first of all, I've been talking about this for months, first of all. Second of all, when I talk about LeBron James and I'm taking shots at LeBron James, I have nothing against him as a basketball player. Okay, I think LeBron James is one of the greatest basketball players to ever play the game. The problem with LeBron James is he's using the platform of the NBA instead of, listen, we all know what just for instance, his son, they're trying to figure out ways where the NBA can bring back high school players after they graduate from high school, they can go to the NBA. And he's trying to push this through so he can have the opportunity to play with his son before he retires. He's always trying to find ways to change rules and break rules. And that's the problem with professional sports right now, Jeff. It's not the fact that the game isn't speeding up or it's not interesting to watch. These players are trying to change the game. The game has survived all these years. You're talking about basketball has been around over 100 years. You're talking about baseball over 100 years. Hockey over 100 years. All these sports.
Changing the game isn't something new. Go back to when the Colts couldn't beat the Patriots, so they changed a couple of rules. They literally changed the game so the Colts would have a chance.
Right. To me, it doesn't help the game.
It's happening forever.
Yeah. But I think...
Forever.
Yeah, but you should keep the game the way it's worked for years, Jeff. All of a sudden, you're going to change... Just like these...
So then let's get rid of the three-point line then, I guess.
Yeah, well, again... To me, if that's the case, and I love it when people say Steph Curry is the best three-point shooter of all time, because numbers would show that they are, because in the game when Jerry West played or Pistol Pete played, there was no three-point line. So how could you honestly sit here and tell me that Steph Curry is the greatest three-point shooter of all time when you can't even prove that, because there were players in those times shooting three-point shots that were counted as two?
I mean, it's kind of a bum argument, right? Because there were teams winning games, 20-16 because they would just score a bucket and then hold the ball before the shot clock.
Right.
So I mean, it's just things must and always do change.
And Carl.
And and you're literally sounding like one of these get off my lawn old people.
No, I'm not. I'm speaking up for not just the fans. I'm speaking up analytically, looking at what analysts are saying. Now, Carl is saying right now his Black Lives Matter stance is breaking the NBA rules. What are you talking about, Errol? This has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. I don't think you're understanding what I'm trying to say. LeBron James, when he speaks, it's not even about what's going on with the George Floyd thing. He speaks, and he, just like with the whole Knicks thing, because of what Phil Jackson said with his posse. He said something about posse, and he made it seem to be racist. That's racist because he said something about posse?
I'll tell you one thing about LeBron James. I'll bet you he knows that the New York Yankees cheated.
He's a Yankee fan.
Yeah, I bet you he knows the New York Yankees are.
Why? This has nothing to do with cheating. I'm just.
The commissioners helped to cover it up. It needed help to cover it up.
I'm just. To me, I can't sit here and Carl. As you know, Carl, I love you too. You're a big fan of the show. I'm not taking shots at, but this has nothing to do with his stance with Black Lives Matter because I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree.
For 5 years, a 5-year ban for the New York Yankees organization. That's just dastardly.
Okay.
Getting the commissioner to help them cover up cheating, that is just incredible.
Thank you, Jeff, for calling the show, man.
I mean, just wild. Don't you think, Speedy?
Well, we'll see how it turns out to be. But until we know more details, we'll have to see. But it's an investigation now.
The New York Mets, the cleanest organization in New York.
Okay.
And cheapest.
Well, Jeff, definitely.
Speedy, you've finally taken the Mets all the way to the top.
Jeff, why don't you call the show tomorrow? I have a great show lined up for you tomorrow. I have some good stories that I definitely want to get into tomorrow.
Will you be talking about the Yankees cheating?
No.
Well, I mean, that's the biggest story in sports right now. I think that you should be.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for calling. Jeff from
your band for the New York.
Jeff from Tampa, ladies and gentlemen. Carl is saying, Errol, he is focusing on social matters. What has he said in the last 2 months? I don't even understand what you're saying. I mean, you could type a little slower so I can. The last 2 months, as this proving your point. Whatever that meant in your spelling, Carl, Mr. Teacher over there, I will say this. First of all, he has spoken about a lot of different things, not only about every single thing that happens in the NBA. LeBron James is the first person to say something and the last person to say something, just like Chris Paul. These two guys for years have gotten involved with things that have nothing to do with them. Now, Chris Paul runs the NBA Players Association. He's the president of that, and that's because LeBron James gave him that order. LeBron James also gave him the insurance company, State Farms, because State Farms wanted LeBron James, and he gave it to Chris Paul. Okay? I'm not taking shots at the superstar of LeBron James. LeBron James needs to take a step back, and I understand that he wants to be the spokesman for the NBA or for the players union. It doesn't help the game. Somebody's calling up, Speedy, so maybe you should look and see if somebody is calling. But you're not, obviously.
Jeff's calling back.
Well, why don't you answer the phone instead of... you don't even know how to use it. It just shows you. Jeez, Speedy. You have no idea what you're doing. You really don't. Anyways, what are you doing? What are you doing? Never mind. Anyways, that's it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, I don't know what you're doing. You're standing around, walking around. What are you doing? Go ahead. Who are we speaking to?
Jeff's back.
Well, learn how to use a phone, Speedy. Jeez.
Do you know what's disgusting in your car?
What?
The Yankees and the Bees. That's how far the Yankees have fallen. I'm comparing them to the Bees. They're disgusting.
Thank you, Jeff. There you go. Jeff from Tampa. as you know. Remember, you can call us at 631-260-1601. I'd like to thank James Madison softball assistant coach Jen Herzig, and I'd like to thank Hamilton Tigers wide receiver Jaelon Acklin for joining us. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for all the fans for listening to the show. We have a great show lined up tomorrow. Stay tuned, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. New York Eastern Time here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Until tomorrow, this is Errol Marks and Speedy Petey that needs to learn how to use the phone, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.